Hello everyone and welcome to today's February 2026 REC Release Drop-in session. My name is Jenny and I'll be facilitating today's event. And today I'm joined by James Hardy from the REC Code Manager team. And just before we get started, I just want to do some housekeeping for you all. So this event will be recorded and the slides were made available last Friday. We will be using Slido as I mentioned throughout. So if you have any questions at any point, just pop them into Slido. The QR code is on the screen now and the joining code, as well as the link in the chat. Just as people are joining that, I will share the agenda with you all. It doesn't look like a lot, but we do have quite a few changes to get through. So without further ado, I will hand over to James.
Thank you, Jenny. Afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm James Hardy, Senior Change Lead on the REC Code Manager team and leading you through the February 2026 release. It's worth noting we'll also touch upon the 3 change proposals that are going to be included in the extraordinary March release as well, but they're not party impacting, so nothing that you need to do for those ones, but we'll just run through them as well. As for the February release, it's another busy REC release, which is a reflection of the hard work by the Code Manager function, but also reflection of all the useful and valuable engagement that parties have provided into the REC change process to ensure that the REC operates smoothly and provides the consumer benefits that is part of the REC objectives. So we've got about 15 change proposals to go through today. I'll go through them in themes. So I've grouped them together. So the change proposals that are similar in impacts and solutions, we can talk about them together. The agenda on the screen there has them in numerical order as well, and the current status of whether they've been approved or whether they're still going through the process. So 287 is still awaiting authority approval, and subject to that being received will be included in the release. And R270, one slight typo on the screen there, has a final recommendation being presented tomorrow, and subject to approval will be in the February release as well. But without further ado, we'll begin with, I believe, 179 and the theme around all the changes that are impacting the inquiry services. So 179 is the proposal for limiting queries in the EES API calls, reducing it to a single query per API call. So this one was approved in 2 separate parts. So the solution was approved by the REC Change Panel in August 2025, but following further discussions and feedback from the responsible committee, the implementation date was amended and approved on the 18th of November to include it in this February release. So in short, 179 establishes a limit of 1 query permitted within a single API call for the electricity inquiry service. And that adjustment is intended to enhance the inquiry service's capacity to consistently meet user demands without impacting its operations. This change has come about due to known performance issues. So by introducing that solution, we should see a reduction in performance issues, including an improvement of 49 to 249 seconds in returning those queries. This is only for the EES rather than GES, but it does align both fuels, bringing EES in line with how it is operated in the gas inquiry service. The impacted products for this one is only the EES API technical specification to clarify that change. And obviously the impacted stakeholders will be anyone that uses that API as an EES service provider or an EES user. Moving on to the next one on inquiry services, it's R0277. Which is the data latency SLA alignment for the gas inquiry service, which was approved by the technical expert panel on the 26th of November last year. And this change proposal clarifies the performance levels within the GES and ensures ongoing service delivery. So the solution impacts the gas inquiry service definition and an updated definition in Schedule 1. So clauses 8.5a and b within the service definition have been amended to confirm that the GES shall process the data in UK link, And to support a understanding of what we mean by UK link as well, a definition has been added to Schedule 1 to define UK link, and that's in alignment with other codes that have defined that term as well. By clarifying the performance levels, there'll be improved alignment of the performance levels with operational capability, and also improved clarity on the performance level SLAs for GES users, as it had been previously noted to the code manager that they weren't particularly clear within that service definition. So similarly, because it's inquiry service, it's only impacting the users of the service. So the GES provider and the GES service users are the only impacted stakeholders for 277. Moving on to the next one, or next topic, we've got switching, and this is regarding R0287 clarification and amendments to the annulment definition in Schedule 23, alignment with SLC obligations. So as noted at the start of this webinar, 287 is currently with the authority awaiting determination, as it was an authority determined change, and the code manager's recommendation was that R0287 was approved for implementation as part of the February release. And it's worth noting that an alternate 287A was recommended to the authority for rejection, but that is currently also under review by the authority. That was issued to the authority for a decision on the 20th of January, and we are hoping to get a response in time for the February release. If an authority decision doesn't come back by the 20th of February, then whether it's 287 or 287A will be included in the next available release. But assuming approval in line with the code manager's recommendation, R287 provides additional clarity to the annulment processes and its usage following concerns raised by some parties that it wasn't fully clear in the schedule and didn't align with the SLC obligations. So the solution sees an amendment to Schedule 23, paragraph 10.1, which will be updated to confirm that annulment requests will be allowed in two particular cases. Firstly, when a consumer has not agreed a contract with the gaining supplier, or alternatively, when the consumer asks the losing supplier to stop the supplier transfer on their behalf. The annulment process has numerous impacts on the consumer switching experience. So by providing this clarity, there'll be improved clarity on the processes and party obligations around the annulment process. That will then lead to that positive switching experience for consumers, and will also ensure from a regulatory compliance perspective that the REC and the obligations set out for parties in there align with those in the SLCs as well. The impacted products as part of the solution is Schedule 1 with a tweak to the annulment definition to provide further clarity, and then that change to paragraph 10.1 in the registration services schedule, Schedule 23. The only impacted stakeholders are energy suppliers, as they are the only ones that use that annulment process, but obviously consumers will be impacted as well. Once we have received an authority decision on this change, we will communicate through our usual channels, so via email, the REC change bulletin and the REC portal, to confirm whether 287 will be in the February release, a future release, or whether it has been rejected by the authority. If anyone does have any questions on that authority approval as well, please do pop them in the Slido and we can answer them later in the session as well. But hopefully that's clear on the status of 287 for you there. So we move on, I think we've got another next theme now, so metering. And we have quite a few metering changes again, obviously following MHHS as well. A few of these have been raised or now in a position to be implemented. So starting with R0190, the related meter points RMP status rules that was approved by the REC change panel on the 20th of January this year. And this change proposal will allow secondary metering points with a status of created to be linked to the primary metering points with a status of operational. But the key part of this is for MHHS migrated metering points only. So the solution for those MHHS metering points is that once the relationship is established, the relevant agents working on those meters will be automatically appointed on the secondary metering point to match the primary metering point, and that will move that RMP status from created to operational. By making this change, we will reduce the number of steps in the process that energy suppliers must carry out on that secondary metering point, which will obviously improve operational efficiency, as currently the agents must be appointed to both metering points to move them to a status of operational and then the relationship created. So it's improving that process, speeding it up and making it simpler for the parties as well. The only products that are impacted are Schedule 28, the related metering point schedule, to clarify this process. And the impacted stakeholders are the energy suppliers that are following that process and the metering point registration system, MPRS, as well. Move on to the next one, please, Jenny. Thank you very much. Is R0198, so the Metering Asset Manager, acronized as MAM, Communication Method Register, and this was approved by the REC Metering Expert Panel on the 13th of August 2025. And this change proposal introduces two new communication method registers, one for MAM to MAM communications and a separate one for MAM to gas supplier communications. These registers, as part of the solution, will be captured the means by which a REC party discharges their obligations within Schedule 14 to send market messages to other REC parties. So the benefits from doing this is there'll be an indirect reduction in the missed market messages, as those communication method registers will allow those communications to take place, reducing the risk of them being missed. We'll also provide a stronger resolution approach, so there'll be an improved missed message resolution approach as well. And from having those communication method registers as well, it will help improve the performance assurance functionality around the processes and party-to-party communication. The impacted product here is only Schedule 14, the meter and operations schedule, but the introduction of these two new registers will also be reflected in the REC baseline statement as well. Those that are unaware, the baseline statement is our sort of master control listing all the REC documents, who they're owned by, and version control. As these are new documents, they will be added to that statement as well. The impacted stakeholders for this one are the gas suppliers and the metering asset managers, so MAMs, as they will be the ones that will be making use of these communication method registers. Have the next slide, please, Jenny. So next metering one is R0244, and that's the C21 to be introduced into the STIRG document. And that is the Service Termination Issue Reporting document. And with 244 adding a new Category 3 asset condition code to that STIRG document. So the C21 is the non-standard PME connection arrangement, and this will be added into that document as a enumeration value into the asset condition code data item DI51121 and J1824. Whilst it's a new Category 3 asset condition code, the document itself still goes through the change process, hence the reason this change has been added to make those changes. The benefit of introducing this new code is the reduction in unnecessary DNO site visits, so again helping to improve operational efficiency, and a reduction in unnecessarily aborted metering jobs that will obviously have benefits for the consumer, particularly improving that consumer journey as they resolve their metering issues. The two impacted products on this change are the data specification, and that's to clarify the data item and what it's there for, and then, as mentioned, the STIRG document itself as well. The only impacted stakeholders for this one will be the DNOs and the meter operator agents, the ones that will be utilising that document and that condition code. So moving on to the next one, so 270, which is the clarification of SIP qualification requirements. And as mentioned, this is currently at final recommendation with a recommendation for approval in this February release, and that will be presented at MEP later this week. So subject to approval and no appeal being raised, R270 would be introduced to ensure that qualified electricity metering operatives, also referred to as EMOs, are also able to qualify as SIPs as well, so safe isolation providers. For this, the solution impacts 3 different schedules. So Schedule 1, interpretations and definitions, Schedule 14, the metering operations schedule, and Schedule 15, the metering accreditation schedule. So Schedule 1 updates the definition of a SIP to apply to accredited mowers and EMOs as well. Schedule 14 sees updates to paragraphs 28.1 and 43.1 to further clarify, to provide further clarification, and to ensure that it only applies to mowers or EMOs that are accredited SIPs. And then Schedule 15 has legal drafting amendments to update references, so SIP responsibilities also apply to both mowers and EMOs as well. The benefits from bringing this change into the REC include increased competition within the SIP market for electricity consumers, allowing them a wider choice. Corrects the REC in regard to the original intention for the role of SIPs that was made when the REC went live a few years ago, and also ensures an appropriate level of qualification requirements for SIPs as well. That will obviously enhance safety and that consumer journey as well. The impact of stakeholders are just the EMOs and the SIPs. No other parties have been impacted by the introduction of this change, again, subject to approval by the metering expert panel later this week. Another metering change, I think this last metering one for this release, but R0271 is clarification of ASP, AMI and EMO accession requirements. So it's looking at for improved meter installers and the electricity metering operatives again, so the EMOs. And this change updates Schedule 1 and Schedule 15 to explicitly confirm whether ASPs, AMIs and EMOs are required to accede to the code. So Schedule 1 being again the interpretations and definition schedule, and Schedule 15 being metering accreditation. In Schedule 1, you'll see an amendment to remove the 2 different definition of ASPs and provide a consolidated definition. So obviously reducing confusion that previously existed. And the REC Schedule 15 for that metering accreditation is amended to clarify the exact accession requirements for EMOs, AMIs and the ASPs. That accession requirements will help them accede to the code as well, providing further clarity and hopefully an easier accession process as well, and provides clarity to the industry that although ASPs are not a party to the REC, nor are they required to accede to the code, they may choose to apply for approval under the ComCop. The ComCop itself is not impacted by this change as well. Obviously, everyone will be aware that the ComCop change 152 went through last year. Moving on, next, we have some of the more technical changes around the market messages. So beginning with R0235A, the missing scenario variant in D0179, and this was an approved alternate solution with R0235, the original raised change proposal rejected by the change panel, with the alternate solution approved by the panel on the 1st of July 2025. So this change proposal removes the use of the D0179 from Schedule 14 to ensure the REC reflects the way that parties have currently been operating. So it's just an alignment of what the schedule says with how parties are operating in practice. So it's a relatively straightforward one in that sense. It just removes the D0179 from the metering operations schedule and confirms that the D0139 message should be used for all meter types. Key part of the solution is that it does not propose the removal of or make any changes to the D0179 in the data specification, hence why the impacted products list there only says Schedule 14 metering operations. Benefits of the alternate as well compared to the original change proposal as well include not reintroducing scenario variants that have been removed under previous changes. So that will help reduce any confusion of if one was brought back in or any system changes that have been made being undone. Brings the REC legal text in line with the way parties are already operating, so ensuring that clarity, and removes redundancy as having a specific flow for the prepayment meters with extra items that are not being used is not efficient for the operation of the REC. Moving on to the next change for market messages is R0242, and this is a missing scenario variant from previous change proposal R0043, and this was approved by the technical expert panel on 26th June 2025. So in the original change proposal for R0043, there was a scenario variant missing in the data specification for D0139 market message 36. So this is the confirmation or rejection of energization status change. That was missing, so this change simply corrects that and adds the scenario variant in to that data specification. As part of that solution, obviously that market message has been added, but there are no changes to the flow structure or any further data items, so there'll be no impact from that. The benefits does mean that crowded meter room managers can meet their REC obligations by enabling them to send the D0139 to DNOs, closing that gap in the data specification. The only impacted products is that data spec, as it is just a new scenario variant, with the impacted stakeholders being the crowded meter room coordinators and the distribution network operators. Can I have the next slide, please, Jenny? So the third market message change is R0256, and this is for market message 23, the D0135 asset condition report clarification of intent on R0021, R0101. The numbers there for 21 and 101 are the previous REC change proposals that has impacted this market message. This was approved by the technical expert panel on the 24th of September 2025 and updates the valid range for group 60H, the asset condition in the D0135 market message 23 data flow, so that only the value 1 is allowed for SIPs, the CMRMs, advanced metering services and the smart metering services. Previously it was 1-to-1 for those noted parties, but the change is just amend that to only the value of 1. The benefits of making this alignment is it aligns the scenario variant of all of those parties with that of the meter operator agent as well, so including creating a more smooth process and alignment across different stakeholders in the REC. The only impacted product again for this one, with it being a market message change, is the data specification, which has been updated to clarify that only the value of 1 is allowed, and the impacted stakeholders are those that have previously been mentioned, but particularly the advanced and smart meter services, the crowded meter room mower, and the safe installation providers, the SIPs. So next theme is performance assurance, and these are changes that are either impacting the performance assurance approach for REC parties or documents that are managed by REC Performance Assurance and the Performance Assurance Board, the REC PAB. These ones are pretty straightforward and don't have too many impacts on all REC parties this time round. But to go through them, firstly we have R0272, enabling transparency of the central registration service providers REC service level performance, and this was approved by the PAB on the 27th of January 2026, and this formalises RECO's permission to publish details about the CRS provider's performance in either aggregated or individual form. So the solution for this one has amended the performance assurance schedule, Schedule 6, to allow the REC PAB to delegate to RECO the action and the decision, should the REC PAB wish to do so, to publish any aggregate or any of the monthly verified service level performance metrics currently provided by the CRS provider to the code manager. So whilst those performance levels are currently being published, it hasn't been set clearly when and how that process works. So by bringing this into the REC and providing that assurance in the legal text under Schedule 6, it provides the PAB/RECO stronger clarity on how this works, when to do so, so this can be shared without any delays or any unseen problems. The benefits for this is it will improve transparency surrounding the monthly reporting, and will also improve accuracy and timely reporting, and increase clarity without adding additional capacity requirements to the process. So the reporting will be the exact same. What parties will be able to see for the CRS provider's performance will be the exact same as well. So there's no change in capacity. It's just clarifying that monthly reporting, when and how it will be seen. The only impacted stakeholders for that one are the CRS provider, so currently the DCC, who was engaged with this change throughout the change process. Moving on to the next one is R0280 regarding the CSS Certificate Authority Audit Clarification. And this one was approved by the PAB on the 16th of December 2025. And this provides a clarification that the switching operator is responsible for the audit process, and that audit process will be conducted on an annual basis. This is regarding the certificate authority. So the only impacted product is the CSS Certificate Authority definition for this one. There's no amendments to the performance assurance schedule itself, with clause 9.1 of that definition being amended to state the switching operator shall ensure the CSS Certificate Authority service is audited on an annual basis by a third party against an approved compliance standard or methodology to be approved by the PAB. Obviously, it's just a slight amendment with the red line on the screen there to see the bits that have been added in, so you can see how that solution has changed the legal text there. The benefits of this are improved clarity on the CSS Certificate Authority audit process and further clarity for the switching operator understanding their obligations, and overall will support a more efficient audit process for the switching operator and around that certificate authority. The only impacted stakeholders are the switching operator and the REC performance assurance as well, as part of their role in following up on that audit. There's no other impacts on that one to REC parties, but it's a useful one for everyone to be aware of and how that audit process will work. Then the last performance assurance themed one is R0283, the annual address management plan updates, which was approved by the change panel on the 16th of December 2025, but will help with performance assurance around address management and also assist the future work of I0200 on address management targets. But 283 specifically looked at clarifying the steps and obligations for an official annual process on the address management plan. So the legal text for Schedule 6 on the performance assurance and Schedule 29 on the address management schedule have been amended to clarify the steps and obligations to ensure the efficient annual process. Schedule 6, though, has specifically been updated to introduce the concept of an address prioritization matrix that will be prepared by the code manager and approved by the REC PAB, and that will help support the annual address management plan be completed. The change will improve clarity surrounding that annual address management plan, but will also set a governance framework around address management that I0200 will be able to proceed under in due course. There has also been an amendment to Schedule 1 as well, just to reflect the address management plan and that address prioritization matrix. The impacted stakeholders for this one, there's indirect impacts on all those that are involved in address management. So the CDSP, the CSS provider, DNOs, energy suppliers, and gas transporters. We can move on, please, Jenny. And then last one for the February release is our usual housekeeping change as well. So on the next slide, we'll just quickly give an overview of what is included in this housekeeping change. For those that are new to the REC, housekeeping changes make non-material changes to REC products to correct typographical, grammatical or consistency errors, and introduces any necessary clarifications. But all of these changes have no impact on REC parties. Hence, it goes through a housekeeping change process as well. As mentioned, the solution there, it implements non-material corrections and clarifications across several REC products with the aim of improving consistency, accuracy, and usability. For this housekeeping change, the impacted products are the data specification, the EES service definition, the EES API technical specification, the REC change panel terms of reference, and then schedules 1, 8, 9, 14, 28, 29 and 34. That housekeeping report is available on the REC portal. If you search change proposal R0293, the change report lists exactly where all of those housekeeping changes are, if you do want to have a look. But again, to reiterate that it says there impacted stakeholders are all REC parties, but there's no material impact on a party. It's just ensuring that the REC is accurate, up to date, and is correct on all typos, all grammar, and any consistency errors as well. Cool. So that was all for February. Appreciate it. It's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour in there. I can see we have one question in the Slido, which I will come to shortly. But it's also worth noting that following the February release as well, on the 27th of March, we will have an extraordinary release as well. It's a very small release. There's going to be 3 changes that are planned for delivery. One has been approved and 2 are still going through the change process. So whilst we won't be doing a separate webinar, as it is 3 very small changes, I will just highlight them to you now. So firstly, R0201, the creation of a tool to manually correct ERDS CSS discrepancies. So this change has already been approved, and it will impact Schedule 14, the metering operations schedule, the ERDS service definition, and the performance assurance reporting catalogue, and will have impacts on the CSS provider, energy suppliers, ERDS provider, and the MEMS. R0294, implementation of IF051 data refresh in EES for BSE CP 1607. So this change is currently going through the change process and is being presented to the technical expert panel at an extraordinary meeting later this week. And subject to those discussions, that should be issued for consultation later this week as well. The products impacted for this one are only the EES service definition, and the EES providers and EES users are the only impacted stakeholders. But if you do have an interest in that one, or it does impact your organisation, please do respond to that consultation that will be issued shortly to help shape that change ahead of the March implementation or proposed implementation. And then finally, R0298, the annual review of the performance assurance report catalogue, or more commonly known as the PARC. So this is a change that many of you will have seen previous versions of, as each year the Performance Assurance Board are required to review the PARC and propose any changes that they believe need to be made, also covering the housekeeping for the PARC under the same standards as I talked about in the wider housekeeping change. That one is currently out for consultation. That consultation is closing tomorrow, so if you do want to respond to that consultation, please do so as soon as possible. On the REC portal page for that as well, there is a red line version of the PARC, so you can see the changes that have been proposed. But again, they're very minimal, as we have had quite a lot of changes in previous releases, particularly in November, that made the updates to the PARC before the annual review. So keep an eye on that. If you have got any questions on the March release, do reach out to your operational account manager, myself, or the inquiries and change management inbox, and we'll be happy to support you either as those changes go through the change process, or once they have been approved, help preparing for implementation for you and your organisation. That brings me nicely on to the wider post-implementation support. So obviously it is a very busy REC release again, but we are here to help any preparations or any further understanding for the changes that are being implemented. The easiest way to contact us is to raise a service desk inquiry. You can do that through the REC portal or email inquiries@recmanager.co.uk. Alternatively, you can contact your operational account manager as well. If you don't know who your operational account manager is, if you drop the inquiries an email as well, we'll be able to get you in touch with the OAM as well. And if your inquiry is relating to a technical issue with the gas inquiry service, or as we do have a few GES impacted change proposals, you can also contact Exiserve as the GES provider directly as well. And the link is on the slides that have been shared. And also, you can also use the switching service management system as well for any technical queries about switching that is available to use. And again, the link can be accessed via the slides that are on the REC portal. I think that is everything that we've had. Again, appreciate it. It's a whistle-stop tour, but happy to answer any questions you have. I think this will also be open as well after the session if you do think of anything, and we'll be able to respond to you offline as well. But Joanna's asked, R0198, is the template being uploaded under other in the performance assurance reporting portal? Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that one off the top of my head, but I will check with our performance assurance team, or I can see Holly's come off camera.
That's fine. I can
if
answer
you've
this
got
one.
an answer. Thank you, Holly.
Yeah. So it will be uploaded under the organisation management tab on the REC portal. It's the same place where the REC party register is. So that's where it will be. I'll drop the link in the chat.
Thank you, Holly.
No worries.
Jane as well, because the one we have before is like
Great, thank you both Holly and James. I don't see any more questions at the moment, so I think we can leave it open for another minute, and if not, then thank you everybody for joining. I'm going to start the feedback survey now. Thank you everybody for joining today's session. We hope it was useful for you. We'd really appreciate it if you took the time to fill out our feedback form, as it really helps us know what we're doing well and what we can improve. As always, your feedback is very valuable to us. So thank you everybody for joining.